Okay, Parshas Likkutei Torah Behaalotecha, page 62. Pasuk says Behaalotecha Menorah. It's the mitzvah of Aaron kindling the Menorah. Rashi said, Aaron Chanukah on the Siyam. When Aaron saw all the Siyam giving the gifts, Chol Shadait, he felt very weak. And he was upset that he wasn't with them in the Chanukah Sabayis. Every Nasi brought a korban and he didn't. I swear, yours is greater than what they're doing. That you are lighting and cleaning the licht. I am b'medrash, okay? Which means, as the medrash says, the Nesiyim's gifts, karbanis, are eventually going to stop. But lighting the Menorah will never stop. So Mefarshim right away asked, but there was no Beis HaMikdash also, there was no Menorah, so the Medrash says just the licht of Chanukah. So Chanukah was why that your natives of Aaron will never stop. Okay. Love and Zet to understand what that means, that he felt bad in that whole thing. So we have to understand Masha Kosov Lahalim, what it says later on in Parsha Behaalotecha, Atzeinu Baka Yishachet Lahem. It says, the Eden said, where's the beef, right? They were sick and tired of the man, built the Aman and Neinu, and this week, next week, Behaalotecha. So, Moshe Rabbeinu says, what am I supposed to do? He said, is there enough cattle in the world to feed the Jews? So the question is, there's 70 nations. There are tens and hundreds of thousands and millions, for that matter, more than the Yidden, and they eat meat. And there is meat. What do you mean? Moshe Rabbeinu said there's no meat in the world. I mean, all the nations of the world eat meat. What do you mean there's no meat? What's Moshe Rabbeinu's problem? Also what he said, it's called Ge'ayam. Moshe Rabbeinu said, even if there's all the fish in the ocean, we won't be enough for these complainers, for these kvetches. So he says, the Yid never complained they want fish. They complained they want meat. So what is Moshe Rabbeinu telling Hashem? There's not enough fish. They never asked for fish. What's the question over here?
Exaggerated.
Huh?
It's exaggerated.
What do you mean exaggerated?
Like it's never enough for them. It's just like a...
No, that's not what it means. Moshe Rabbeinu, Hashem said to him, Yad Hashem tiksod. What are you doubting the ability of Hashem? Wasn't this tam? Moshe Rabbeinu was saying, do you think there's enough meat for them? And then he said, do you think there's enough fish? They never asked for fish. What are you bringing in fish for? Okay, like it says in the pickup about a goylem. You stop bringing in other sons, you're a goylem. The Jews ask for meat. Moshe Rabbeinu comes along and says, hey, Abish said, where are you going to find meat for them? So first of all, what do you mean? All the nations have meat. What do you mean? Why should there be a meat shortage? And secondly, he says about fish. They never asked about fish.
You can't find fish in the meat pot anywhere.
Huh?
The fish in the meat pot.
You don't think it was possible for them to have fish?
No. I'm saying, even though he's asking, I don't know why he was asking, because there wouldn't be any fish in the meat pot.
They brought it from Egypt. They made small.
In Parshas Shmini, when Moshe Rabbeinu said the dinim of kashrus, says Zeisa beima shetechelu, v'zeisa chaya shetechelu. Yeah, he held it. Now, where in the midbar did they find a kangaroo? Where in the midbar did they find an elephant? Where in the midbar did Moshe Rabbeinu show them all the fish? This fish you can eat, and this fish you can't. And Rashi quotes, Melamed, it teaches us, Zeis means this is it. Yeah, he said this, you see this animal, this you could eat, this animal you can't eat. Where in the world did he get all the animals in the desert? And then, the Rebbe spoke a sikha that l'chayra, nobody even stops to think on this Rashi, and they just in the Rashi and get weiter. But they think about it, where in the world in the desert were all these animals? So the Rebbe explained, when it comes to learning Torah, there's nothing standing in the way. Even in the midbar, they can show a kangaroo if you need. So if they wanted to have fish, they can have fish.
Is it possible they had internet? It sounded sweet, but something that it could have shown a picture of it. He actually, it says he actually showed the animal.
Eiches biyodei, right? He held it in his hand and he said, this fish you can eat and this fish you can't eat. This animal you can eat and this animal you can't eat. That's what it says. But in order to understand this, so first we need to understand what does it mean Aaron felt bad that he didn't bring the Chanukah Sabayis and Hashem told him, okay, you can have the Menorah, and also what's this whole thing with the meat stuff. We need to understand first the gifts that the Nesiim brought in this week's Parsha. It wasn't stam korbanis. Korban comes with the word korev. When the Nasi of Yehuda or Yisachar, or whatever it is, brought their korban, they elevated actually the entire tribe. They represented the tribe. So therefore they elevated the tribe. So the Indian is like this. We need to understand the Amid Azal, the Gemara says, Arma Amaretz Asalach Obasa. The Gemara says in Amaretz, in illiterate, it's not to eat meat. Also, it's forbidden from to eat meat. Why? Because a person, Amaretz, is not able to elevate meat. If you're not able to elevate it, you can't eat it. This that the person elevates the food, right? That means the Gemara says an Amaretz can't eat meat because he can't elevate it. Which means a person basically elevates the food. Why can a person elevate the food? Because a person comes from a higher level because he's medaber, not chai. Like it says in Kreis Varchu. In another place it comes out just the opposite. Why? The tree that Adam Rishon, we were talking about this the other day, right? The tree that Adam Rishon, the Chatei Tzadas, the Gemara says Chita Haisa. It was a wheat, which then grew on a tree. Because of the sin, Hashem made it grow on the ground. But originally it grew on a tree. There's eitz, a das. That means that a person gets nourishment from the chita, from the food. Or like the Gemara says, Rav Nachman adal lo yachilna bisra de Torah. The Gemara tells a story in Bava Kama that they asked Rav Nachman a question, he didn't have the answer at night, and in the morning he told the people the answer. He said, the reason I didn't answer you because I didn't eat beef yet. That means his brain wasn't functioning properly until he ate meat. So that means here we're saying a person elevates the food, and here we're saying the food elevates the person. Both are true. Because food is lower, and his food is higher. There's two things. Food is lower and food is higher. What does that mean? Like we learned in the other Maimon, this comes in the world of Tehu. The higher the thing, the lower it falls. So all this daimim, tzemeach, chai, inanimate, plant and human, they all come from the level of Tehu, which is the level of Elam Hanukudim. Shelamaylam Yatzilis, which is called Brudim, Hainu, Kisheresh Kol Achai, because the source of all animals and everything come from the Chayis HaMerkava, comes from the animals on the throne of Hashem that we in the first day of Sukkot. Pnei Amishvus. The lion on the Merkava is the source, spiritual source of all beasts. And the shod is the source of all animals. And Pnei Nasha, the eagle that's on the throne, is the source of all birds. So in other words, everything has a spiritual source. What's the source of all animals? The shod of the Merkava. The chayes, the beast, is the aryeh. The bird comes from the nesha. V'ina achayis neisa sakisei, the pasuk says that the malachim pick up the chair, the throne of Hashem. What's sitting on the throne? Adam shalakisei. There's Adam, which refers to Hashem sitting on the throne. V'alkisei kamada Adam, which is as the spheres d'Atzilus, which are the 10 spheres of Atzilus of Elam HaTikun, that's called parts of Adam, okay, which is called the image of a person. Why? Because a person, we learned many times, a person is created in the image of Hashem. What does it mean a person is created in the image of Hashem? A person has the heads on top, then the rest of the body, and the feet are at the bottom. Yeah? So that's Chachma, Bina, and Das, the head. And then you have the Midas, and then you have Heid and Yesed, which are, we say in Paschalio, Trei Shaken, the 2 thighs, which is the feet. So, by a person, why is a person standing upright? All animals are on all 4. The head and the rest of the body are all on the same level. Why is the head and the rest of the body? Because they're not created in the image of Hashem. A person is created in the image of Hashem because the seichel is higher than Midas, so therefore the head is higher than the rest of the body. So that refers to the 10 spheres of Atzilus. Right? Now, these chayas, which by the way are malachim of the world of Bria, are elevating the Adam Shalakisi, meaning they're elevating the level of Atzilus. Right? They're elevating the Kisei with the person on it. So they're elevating the Adam. Adam is the 10 spheres of Atzilus, he's explaining. So even though the Chayas are lower than Adam, Adam represents Atzilus. The Merkava is the world of Bria. So yet, these things, even though they're lower, they're picking up the higher thing. Shall say the which is Ramach shall sagidam, okay, or could see it aguf, and the way the body, the form of the body, kamei kemislabesh and nefesh. How do you slab shesaoris and nefesh beguf? Because the nefesh being divided up by the body, the fitzir aguf is based on the image of the body. Shamer sheira machshava b'padi b'yadayim kechamaisa. And that's the Adam, or Aleph, who bechinas machshava, Dalit is Dibur, Mem is Maisa. Right? So you have Adam, represents the person. Machshava, like we said, is Aleph, Dalit is Dibur, Mem is Maisa. So the Chayis are elevating that level. Ukmei, Keinu, Lemaila, Basa, Spheres, Datzilis. Mishtalshem, so therefore the same thing. From the 10 spheres of Atzilis comes the level of Adam. Okay, so he says like this. Bottom line is, you have the source of all birds, animals, and that stuff comes from Merkava. Okay, short of the Merkava is the source of animals, Ari is the source of Chayos, and Nesha, the eagle, is the source of all birds. The Adam Alakisi represents the person, the 10 spheres of Atzilus, which a person is created in that image. So the Adam is the level of Adam Elyon, because it's just a Devishter has Seichel above Midas, so that's the Nefesh Adam. Now yet from one side the Chayas are lower, they're only in the world of Bria, those Malachim. Yet they are the ones that elevated the level of Atzilus, the level of Adam. So therefore, in this respect, they're higher than Adam, and the other respect, they're lower than the Adam. They're in a Bria, and he's in Atzilus. V'yesh b'chinas meichen de gadlus, v'meichen de kadnus and meichen de gadlus. And therefore, also even in Seichel, there's a higher level of Seichel and a lower level of Seichel, just like it is L'mayla. Masha'enk and Shari Abruyim, all the other animals, like Behemoths v'chayas, Ein sir aguf shalem shavel adam klal. They're not at all looking like a person. By the way, a monkey, it says, is the mamutza, the intermediary between animals and people. Therefore, a monkey, most of the time the head's up. It has down and up, but a monkey is upright like a person. V'reishim kofa v'shavim aguf. Ukmei can say that Hamshachosim Mekain Rishorsham, the same thing, the Hamshach coming down to these animals, Ugamkin Ishtalshad Vamasiga Beifenachem Mamish. Okay? He's just saying it's not directly getting Chayis and Atzilus, because it's not in the image of Hashem. If it's not in the image of Hashem, it's not getting Chayis in the world of Atzilus.
The Torah says monkey is between Chayot and Adam.
It's a Mishnah, but it's a elaborate on Chassidus, yeah? Why? Well, according to the people that say we came from monkeys, got it similar. They don't say we come from dogs or elephants. What?
Darwin says the same thing.
That what?
That men come from monkeys.
Torah doesn't say people come from monkeys.
No. I know.
I'm just saying that a monkey in certain respects walks on 2 feet like a person.
Just
Resembles. Depends which side of the family. You know the story, okay. So. Vinay, achayis shebemerkava, these chayis, these malachim, inay sesakisei, elevate the throne, meaning, kamei shebehemes magbias adam areichav aleim, just like animals. Pick up the rider on the animal, right? They pick him up and take him to where he needs to go. The same thing, they elevate this level of Adam on the Merkava, l'mayla mimanu, meaning the shorsham which has come from the Eilam Atil, shelamayla me'atzilus. So now the Rebbe is explaining this. They elevate the person. Neisis is Adam, yeah? Now, where do they take him to? Where do they elevate him to? So he's saying over here, they elevate him to the world of Tehu, which is where the source of the Malachim, of their Mitzvah Chai come from. Because Atzilus, Bria, Yetzira, and Asiya is connected to Daimim Tzemei Chai Medaber. Daimim is Asiya, Tzemei is Yetzira, Bria is Chai, and Atzilus is Medaber. That's why Malachim, which are the level of Chayes, they come from the world of Bria primarily. Malachim and Yetzira, like the Alter Rebbe says in Tanya. But that's where we come from. But he says, Ochenim Gamki Neises Imakise. What it means, but it says, Neises Im Hakisi. That means they elevate with the chair. When the Malachim pick up the chair with Adam on it, so they're also going up. Right? Which is Magbi or Maila Esam, which they elevate the person, Jalsek Adam Beilam Hazeh, Maila is Basa Behema. But just like a person elevates the meat. When a person eats meat, what happens to the meat? It becomes your blood and flesh. That means it becomes part of the person, which is contrary to people who think eating animals is cruelty. On the contrary, you're elevating the animals from an animal state to a human state. That's the level of nisus. So he's saying both things over here. The food elevates the person, and the person elevates the food. And it's not a contradiction.
Who is on the kise?
Huh?
Who is on the kise?
Adam. That's the level of Atzilus. Kisei, generally speaking, and it says the word Kisei in Chassidus and Kabbalah and the Psukim, Kisei represents the world of Bria. Because when a person sits, they become lower. Correct? You're standing, you become lower. Amida represents two things. Number one, you're higher than when you sit. And secondly, Amida represents bittul. Yeshiva sitting doesn't represent bittul. Somebody walks in, you stand up. Right? So that represents bittul. Shemona Esrei is ba'amida. It says in Kabbalah, Krishma is be yeshiva. Because it's the world of Bria. You know, the sulam of the ladder of davening. So Krishma is the world of Bria. Shemona Esrei is the world of Atzilus. So Atzilus is Amida, Shemona Esrei is Amida, and Krishma. So Kisei is the world of Bria. The Adam ala Kisei is the level of Atzilus higher than Bria.
You know the passage about Amalek, where Kisei.
It's not complete. Yeah.
That's Chodesh Baruch Hu or Adam?
The Adam ala Kisei.
So who is this Adam?
Adam is Hashem, the 10 spheres of Atzilus. That's what he says here, no? Adam is the 10 spheres of Atzilus. The Chayes of the Merkava are the world of Bria. Now the world of Bria elevates Atzilus. Which means when a person eats food, which comes from Daimim Tzemei Chai, i.e. Asiya Yitzir and Bria, so a person now is able to think and to function better as a person. That means it elevates the person. At the same time, the person elevates the food. It becomes from Bria Yitzir and Asiya, it becomes Adam, it becomes Medaber. It's a double. You have a similar thing when the Gemara says, Mitamida Yesem Mikulam. Right? It says, I learned a lot from my teachers, I learned more from my friends, and Mitamida Yesem Mikulam. I learned the most from my students. Why? Because when you teach students, and they ask questions, so you have to go deeper into it to understand it. Besides the fact, when you want to explain something, you need to understand it better than if you're not explaining it. When you have to teach something, you have to understand it. If you don't understand it, you can't teach it. Right? So you find two things. The teacher is teaching the student, and the student is elevating the teacher.
Obviously, this process of eating and elevating doesn't happen if you don't say the bracha.
Correct. And eat it l'shem shemayim.
You become one of l'shem shamayim.
Yeah. That's how you elevate the food. Tray for food you can't elevate, so therefore you're not allowed to eat it.
What is the difference between trefa and the kosher food that we don't say bracha? No?
What kosher food you don't make a bracha? If you steal it, you don't make a bracha. What food don't you make a bracha?
Medicine.
If it tastes good, you make a bracha on it. Stolen food is an averi, you don't make a bracha on it.
You should say somebody is not full and he eats, he's eating kosher food. He doesn't say bracha. That's equal to a teref.
No.
That's what I'm saying.
In order to elevate the food, you need to make a bracha and eat it for the right purposes. You don't make a bracha, you're not elevating it. You may be elevating a little bit because let's say you eat and then you do a mitzvah with that. They don't make a bracha, but they do a mitzvah with it. So that part of it's elevated. What did they do before the Chacham instituted brachas? Before the Chacham instituted brachas, they ate. So officially they did make brachas, unofficially. The Yishanim, we learned many times, the Yishanim discussed what bracha did they make on the man. Obviously they made a bracha in the midbar. If the question is what bracha did they make? But it was instituted as an obligation. But brachas came about in Anshe Knesset Gadela. It's the second Beis Hamikdash.
So they must have made some kind of bracha.
I told you, even in the midbar they made a bracha. Before Matan Torah, they for sure didn't elevate the food. Because Gashmis couldn't become holy. right? But after Matan Torah, they elevated the food.
How could they immediately know brachos?
Huh?
They just got
They Googled it.
But Avraham Avinu brought people closer to Hashem with food.
But didn't elevate their food. Because before Matan Torah, Gashmis couldn't become elevated. And not only that, Chassidus explains something else. Adam Rishon was Megayu, I'm Megayu, he wasn't Gatus, but he brought hundreds and thousands of people to Yiddishkeit, yeah? What happened to all their descendants? Chassidus explains it wasn't a permanent thing. It didn't last.
Why?
Because the number was before Matan Torah. You have, when Avram, if you think about it, Avram Avinu, it's like, when Avram Avinu made the people make a bracha, yeah, wasn't a bracha. Thank Hashem. Yeah, he wanted the people to believe in Hashem. Yeah. If I tell you, if you don't make a bracha, I'm going to charge you $1,000 for the steak, and if you make a bracha, it's going to be free. Yeah. So you make a bracha. You make a bracha because you really believe in God, or you making bracha because you don't want to pay $1,000? Why are you making a bracha? So Chassidus asks, what did Avraham Avinu gain by making these people believe in God? He didn't make them believe in God. They didn't want to pay $1,000. So you make a bracha. I mean, it's cheaper. Right, the same thing. You have, you force somebody to do a mitzvah, and you force them to do a mitzvah. Avraham Avinu forced them. How did he spread Yiddishkeit? By telling people, okay, you have to make a bracha. Okay, they made a bracha. Of course, because if not, he would charge them. The answer is, it's the same thing as Yitzrei Ra answer. And there's 7 mitzvahs, which is belief in Hashem. Even if they say they don't want to, it's not really them. It's the Yetzer Hara speaking. In 7 mitzvahs, a guy, like just like by Yid, the Rambam says, yeah? So the same thing, in those 7 mitzvahs, it's the same thing. When he forced them to make a bracha, even though they did it not because they believed in Hashem, because they didn't want to pay money, yeah, it's still because that's what they really want.
How is that different from a bachur that knows somebody on the street and tell them to put the tefillin?
No. Over there, the guy wants to. You're not forcing him.
Sometimes they don't.
So they don't. Because the Yetzer Hara covers even that. Look at the Rebbe asks, one second. In Basi Lagani it says that the Nefesh Habamis, the Ruach Shtus, can only cover the Seichel and Midah, it's not the essence. Therefore, when it comes to Avodah Zarah, even in Amoritz, the Rebbe says in Tanya, is Meisei Nefesh, yeah? So, in Tavshin Yud Gimel, in the Aris over there, so in the back, they asked the Rebbe, but L'chayr people do worship idols. Jews do worship idols. Which contradicts that whole concept and the essence. The Rabbi asks, sometimes the Ruach Shtus says, Machas, even the essence.